right, what's up everybody? Happy Friday. We're currently on the corner of West 33rd Street and 8th Avenue. It's a beautiful Friday night in New York City, and there seems to be a lot of people out enjoying the weather. I see April M, Sally is here, Lena Sandoval, Rick C, what's going on? Soho Joe, long time no see. Mark T is here, what's up Mark? Harry Connor, DC322, David Torres, good to see you David, good to be with you as well, and Andrew O'Donovan. Patrick Sykes, Dale Melee, Jennifer Gala, Skip Turner, wow. Rocket Mob, long time no see. Joe C, what's good everybody? Tatted T, it was a big day in the markets. Obviously we're going to be talking about the big non-farm payroll number that we got out today. I believe 177,000 was the print, which beat expectations. We'll talk about it. We'll also talk about the market reaction. Alan, good to see you on this non-farm payroll Friday. It's the second day of May, and markets closed markedly higher. I would say in the short term, though, we have about 8 or 9 days higher for the S&P 500 in a row. So a lot of the leaders that are out, and we'll talk about this in a minute, a lot of them are short-term extended. So we'll cover some of the, I would say, the most prominent names that everybody should be on the lookout for. I see Paul McNeely is here. Hey Paul, happy Friday. Now it's strange because the weather outlook showed it was going to rain like every day, and it showed like today was going to be terrible. But honestly, a really nice day in the city today. It was about 82 degrees. Right around 1 p.m., the sun came out. It was a very nice day. I was out yet again in Brighton Beach, Brooklyn, which is the last stop on the B train. For those of you who don't know, Brighton Beach is really known as Little Russia, or Little Odessa, as they call it. There's a huge Ukrainian and Russian community that live out there. It's a very interesting neighborhood. And I think the neighborhood's going to continue to get even better because it's almost the summer. It's right on the water. So Joe C says rain starting on Saturday. Jamie Price is here. Good evening. What's up, everybody? Connie Ruiz, Monday is here as well. Jow MB Special. Tease, what's going on? Oh, it's RB. What's up, RB? Sunshine Vibes is here. Welcome. Steven says Singapore is hot. Well, I'll be in Singapore later. Well, I would say at the tail end of the summer I'll be making my rounds through Asia. I'll pretty much be traveling all through Asia. Mike, New York. Walter, cheers. Look at how beautiful the post office is here. This is the Moynihan Train Hall. And in here is the brand new Amtrak terminal, as well as the Long Island Railroad. April M, what's going on? Just excited to hear what you have to say. Likewise, I'm excited to hear what you have to say as well. Paul Davies. Cheers, Paul. We'll take one more look at this architecture in the back. Greetings all of our friends in the UK. Susanna Q4 is here. And I see Sarah. What's going on, Sarah? Happy Friday to you. And David is here, our good friend on X. We also have Peters as top of the evening, and happy weekend everybody, as well as Gigi NYC. So we'll go ahead and kick things off. As always, we'll do the nightly audio and visual check. So if you can all hear me, and if we're streaming in 1080p, just leave a thumbs up in the chat and we'll get started. A quick forewarning, I still don't have the wind guard on my mic. I may have to go to B&H. I may have to go to B&H and get another wind guard. We'll see what happens. Walter says, you walked past me, I recognize that voice from anywhere. From the record, you're wearing a baseball cap. Yeah, we're wearing a Gemini baseball cap. Oh, I didn't see it. Hopefully you're having a good weekend, or start to the weekend. Thanks for watching. Maybe I'm assuming you're probably commuting home, right? From Midtown Manhattan. Anyway, thanks for joining. We'll take one lap around by the Hudson Yards. It's taller than I thought you would be. Yeah, I'm just an inch over 5'5", so we're about 5'6". Anyway, Keith Richards, what's going on? It's his beautiful night on Roosevelt Island next to, oh wow. You know, it's funny you mention that because, so I was just at, well, I should say, I just filmed a video around Long Island City, and it's really unbelievable, the views from the park in LIC overlooking Roosevelt Island, and really you could see the entire skyline of Manhattan. It's a very unique view, arguably one of the best views in all of New York City. Another place that is what I would say is perhaps underrated in terms of a view perspective is a lot of those new condos in Greenpoint, Brooklyn. So I used to live right as you would walk over the Pulaski Bridge. So I would get off at Vernon Jackson Boulevard, and which is in Queens. So the 7 train station, Vernon Jackson, walk across that bridge to Greenpoint, and the views are insane. Really, really insane there. Anyway, but yeah, Long Island City is great. And talk about another place in New York City that has just really skyrocketed. If the last time you were in LIC, Queens, was about maybe 8 to 10 years ago, the entire place looks completely different. There's just high-rise after luxury apartment complex, after luxury condominium, and it's really priced out a lot of the original Long Island City residents, because if you remember correctly, LIC used to just be a complete industrial park. There still is an industrial park, obviously, but now it's just, you know, flooded with, what do you call it? Luxury condos. Before we get started and talk about the market, I just want to show you guys in here. Many of you already know, but if you go into the side entrance of the Moynihan train hall here, on the 30th Street entrance, in between 8th Avenue and 9th Avenue on the Amtrak, if you just simply go in here and you look up, right, there's an entire really replica of the New York City skyline here. And not a lot of people know about this, but I mean, so many people commute through here and they just walk right under, and they don't even take a second to look up. But how unique is that? You can see the Chrysler Building, you could see the World Trade Center, you could see the Edge building at the Hudson Yards. It's really cool. Anyway, so right as you walk in on the 30th Street entrance, in between 8th and 9th Avenue, by the Amtrak Metropolitan Lounge, if you just look up, you have that entire skyline of New York City, which is pretty interesting, because there's so many people that come through here and they never just look up at the, what's it called, mural. I know Peter wanted me to show you guys this, a little bit about the artist, I guess, who did it. Pretty cool, right? Anyway. Mighty Bull, good to see you. All right, everyone, well, good evening and welcome back to Walks and Wall Street. It's a beautiful night in New York City, and it is May 2nd, 2022, or 2022, 2025. This has been a very, let's just say, interesting market, and we've been talking about this since we've been back. I think this is about the third live stream since we've been back. So the market originally had its first follow-through day last Friday, last Thursday. Then we had a second follow-through day on the following Tuesday, and that was kind of our signal to start to add exposure to equities in the portfolio, which would be the top ideas and the top names, right? Now, one of the things I like to do as the market is I'm not even gonna say a correction because it's been a brutal bear market, right? Bear markets really have two characteristics. One in terms of price declines, and then the second characteristic is duration or time. So not all bear markets are made the same. Some bear markets have a very shallow price decline, let's just say about 20% across the board on the indices, but it's a very, very slow grind lower, right? So it could take 5+ years for the market to go down 20%, but it stays down, right? So that would be a long drawn out duration. I would say post 2008 financial crisis, one of the things that we've been seeing is exacerbated price moves and shortened duration of these bear markets. But if you really get caught off sides here, in 4 days, the market can be down 20%. And as we kind of talk about beta weighting a portfolio or kind of understanding beta, if the S&P is down, 20 to 30%, a lot of these individual stocks are going to be down a multiple of that, particularly a lot of the high beta tech stocks. So if you have the NASDAQ off 20%, you're going to have a lot of the high octane growth names down maybe even 70% or 80%. So it appears to me, after these two follow-through days, the market, in terms of the S&P 500, has had now, I believe, 9 days in a row, 8 to 9 days in a row of positive gains. Let's just wait for the FDNY to go by. Hope everything is all right. This is Manhattan West, by the way. So you have these two massive skyscrapers, one Manhattan West and two Manhattan West, and that building in the background is the Edge, which would be the Hudson Yards development. So it's pretty convenient. This is the back side of the Moynihan train hall, and then you can come out, cross the street, and connect right to Manhattan West with an additional connector, which is the Moynihan connector, which costs the city about $50 million, which will loop you around to the Whole Foods, which is the Hudson Yards. So anyway, this has been a very, very kind of like flash in the sky bear market. And we talked about all the sentiment indicators. We talked about just the ferociousness of the move to the downside and the ferociousness of the move up in the VIX, coupled with extremely, extremely bearish and negative sentiment. This is some of the worst sentiment we've seen since the financial crisis, right? Both in the consumer sentiment data, the University of Michigan, and in consumer spending outlooks, which is the perfect, what I like to call magic elixir for a bottom signal, right? You have stocks, the volume, right? It's one thing when stocks roll over and they go down, but if they go down on thunder volume, that means a lot of money is coming out of these names. A lot of big institutions are dumping these names and going risk off in the market. You had the put to call ratio really get ramped up there and go to Mars, and you had a big explosion in the VIX, or the CBOE volatility index. We almost touched or tagged those COVID highs, the 2020 VIX blow-off highs. With that, we now have a new set of leaders after this follow-through day. To cut right to the chase here, what I like to do personally and what I look for coming out of a bear market when we get these follow-through days, the stocks that I tend to buy are the stocks that are actually not well off the highs. If a stock is, let's say, 40% off of its high, its all-time high, and we have a follow-through day, that is probably going to be a very, very low on the list criteria for me to buy that stock. However, if the market has a follow-through day, which we've now had two, and you see these stocks that have been bucking the trend, right? They've actually been either, maybe they're down 5%, maybe they're down 10%, or maybe they're even leading into new highs, right? Those are the names you really want to go after. So we talked about some of those throughout the week. You look at a name like Netflix, right? That is so far the leader in this market, trading into new all-time record highs. You also have names like Spotify, ticker symbol SPOT. And I would say a little bit lower down the list, you have a name like Uber, ticker symbol UBER. Now, Uber had a pretty decent day today, but that's one of these stocks that's a little bit stuck in the mud, a teeny bit. If you look out on a weekly chart, you see a stage 1 IPO base. It broke out of that stage 1 IPO base in October, and it's been forming a handle on top of the base since October. Now, the handle isn't as tight as I would like to see it. It's a little bit whippy. It's like a whipsaw kind of base on top of that cup. But that is one of the names that I've gone after. I think we closed at about $84 a share with a catalyst next week of earnings. So those are really the kind of the names I'm watching here. I do try to stay away from names that have been really beaten down and blasted. I think, not to ramble on too much, but if we go all the way back to my biggest winner of my career, which was in the 2021 bull, it was an Australian company, Atlassian, ticker symbol TEAM, or TEAM. And when that stock broke to the downside and went into the bear market, when we had that just really, really tough bear market of 2022 to 2023, that stock never recovered, right? So when these TMLs top, very, very seldom do they come back. We've only really seen that in a lot of the Mag 7 names. Tesla's done it a bunch of times. So kind of contrary to what many people think, right? When the market rolls over, you're like, oh my gosh, these names are down 40, 50, 60%. And when the market has that follow through, a lot of people are bottom fishing and buying these names that are down. They usually tend to stay down. And then you miss out on the big rally because number one, you don't own the index, and number two, you don't own the names that are actually moving. So I think as we go into next week, to kind of wrap up the intro here, and then we'll talk about the non-farm payroll numbers as we make a loop around, as we make a loop around Hudson Yards. With 9 days in a row up, you're probably going to have some backing and filling, which is normal, but look for that correction on low volume. Again, contrary to what everybody else is doing, once you get that first follow-through day, you've got to add exposure, and you've got to keep laddering into these names as they continue higher, right? It's like feed your winners. And I made a few posts on X about this. If you're not following us on X, you could follow us at walks&wallstreet. And this was last week when everybody was freaking out. It's like, you got that follow-through day. It feels terrible. It feels like the sky is falling. The news is terrible. But you got to add exposure, and you got to be sitting on that bid all day. Filling. You should be filling out your orders all day into the close. And then you should have some cushion now, right? So in a lot of these names that we talked about, like Netflix, Spotify, Uber, a few others that we'll name. And again, this isn't recommendations to buy anything. This is just kind of, we're talking about individual names because it's a very pivotal point at the market. You got to ladder up and into these, right? And then if, we have a market failure and these names go below, 5 to 7% of your original buy point, then you leg out of it, right? And then you reset, and then you go after these names again as the market resets. But I think this is looking pretty good. However, a lot of those leaders that we talked about now are quite extended from their moving averages. So next week, maybe, if we get a little bit of a pullback in the market, as we've had about 9 days now up in a row on the S&P, look for those pullbacks to be on lower volume which would be even more bullish. All right, that's all I got for the intro. Let's see who we got in the chat, and we'll take a walk around this beautiful city. Hey, Ali French is here. NBA Elias, welcome. I see our good friend Reggie44. CP is here, says hello, Tom. Hello to you. Top Cat is here, welcome. Always appreciate you joining. Buy the Book is here, says hey, Tom and everybody. Our good friend Patrice 2020 is here as we're looking at the brand new BlackRock headquarters. Oh, Reggie44 says Palantir, almost an all-time high. Thank you for mentioning that, by the way, because that is a name I forgot to mention. PLTR, that is another one of those names that was trading into new highs as all this crazy stuff is going on. So thank you for pointing that out. If anybody else has any names or tickers that they're looking at that are trading into new highs, obviously with great earnings and great sales growth that I may have missed, feel free to put it in the chat. A little tired this Friday. I've been going pretty hard all week. 1980 says hello from Chile. Good to see everybody. I have a few good friends from Chile. This is the Equinox Hotel right here at the Hudson Yards. It's a beautiful building, and this part of town is really going to get rocking because the weather's starting to get nice out, which is always a plus. Bishop Bond is here. Good to see you, Bishop. Trust you're well. Unigate 23. Harry is here. Carl Ross says, whenever I choose my stocks, I always look at each trading range of each individual stock. Oops. Let me go back to your comment. Spotify is one of those that I bought. Very cool. Andrew says AMD has been beaten down and reports next week, I believe. Yeah, I couldn't even tell you what the AMD chart looks like because, again, when I run those screens, stocks stuck in the mud tend to stay stuck in the mud. David is here. Good to see you, David. Welcome to the Hudson Yards. Ignacio. Wow, guys, look at how cool this is. You have all these kind of folding chairs sitting out here. Peter says, I got some Rich Tech Robotics you mentioned, and it's up about 70% in a few months. Not bad. Congratulations on your gains. God bless. Andrew Donovan is looking forward to DoorDash earnings approaching all-time highs. That's another one I'm looking at. NBA Elias says, Tom, good article today in Barron's making the case for Palantir stock using discounted cash flow models. New England Crypto, good to see you. Welcome. Speaking of crypto, we've been having some really good action in Bitcoin. I think briefly intraday, we got a hair over 97,000 as we kind of have a little bit of rotation out of gold, tad bit of rotation out of gold here. You know, since New England Crypto is here, kind of segueing into the, I would say the good news as it relates to the crypto markets, and we mentioned this a few days ago. Our good friend Mike Novogratz, who is the CEO and founder. Oh, they got the Yankees game on. This is sick. Hold that thought. I'm not a big baseball fan, but this is pretty cool. How cool is that? You could just come here for free and watch the Yankees right outside of the vessel. Hopefully we don't get the channel taken down by the Yankees. Yankees don't play around with copyright. Anyway, so we have Galaxy Digital is going to be listed on the NASDAQ. I think their list date is May 18th. And this is very significant, okay? This is very, very significant because this really, I think, is going to be the listing that signals a major, major change in terms of the regulatory environment and really the overall, how should I say this? I should say attitude of the US government and the SEC towards the digital asset, cryptocurrency, and Bitcoin ecosystem. Right? I think Galaxy Digital, currently listed on the Toronto Stock Exchange, going to be listed on NASDAQ now on the 18th, is going to make way for a lot more crypto-centric countries, or companies, I should say. And that is a trend to watch. We popped it up. Yankees are winning 3-0 though. Yeah, that is a major trend to watch, because we always kind of say every single bull market, right, in the equity market is crowned with a theme or a different, thematic. And there's always kind of mini bull markets within a larger bull trend. If you go back and do a post-analysis on, bull markets of the past, you usually have mini manias in there, right? Who remembers the marijuana, penny stock craze? Anybody remember that? I think that was like 2017. You would turn on CNBC or Bloomberg, and it was, this marijuana stock. I think one of them was called Tilray. I don't even know if it's still around. But it was just like insane. And then you had a lot of the like a mini mania in the fake food stocks, or the fake meat stocks and things like that. And I think you're going to have a mini mania this cycle in companies that are coming to market that play in the cryptocurrency ecosystem. I think you're going to have a lot of frothy activity there. So definitely keep that on your watch. Stephen Bates' marijuana penny stock started in late 2015 and then pumped in 2017. Yeah, I remember it well. Sarah says Tilray's at 45 cents. Holy crap. What was Tilray's peak, by the way? I think Tilray peaked at like $300 or something crazy. Larry Adams is here. I see Brittany McMurdy. What's going on? Hope you're well. Always a pleasure to see you. Mariana, Texas. What's going on? Paul says thoughts on nuclear energy stocks. I think that also may be an interesting thematic and a little bit of a mania there. But there also is another sector that I think is going to do exceptionally well. The reason why I say that is because this is one of the sectors that are leading in the market right now, which is cybersecurity. If you look at the broad range of cyber stocks, you had Zscaler have a really good week this week. Palo Alto Networks had a good week, and I think CrowdStrike now is trying to break out of a handle. I think it's still a few bucks below a new all-time record high. So, maybe we'll get another, leg up here in some cyber stocks. We'll see. This is the entrance to the shops at the Hudson Yards. I'll give you guys one more look at the vessel. Pretty cool, right? And this is the shed building here. So the shed is on wheels, and it retracts, goes in and out. Good night, guys. RB says, Tom, Miami F1 weekend. Oh, you're right. Miami's probably going to be absolutely rocking for F1 weekend. If you're there, let me know how business is down there. Oh, cool. David says your buddy works security at the vessel. Love that. This is the entrance to the Edge, which is probably a good time to go up to the Edge. It's a very clear night. Andrew Donovan says CrowdStrike about 12 bucks off of all-time highs. Yeah, and it's interesting because, CrowdStrike went through a very, very difficult time with its brand image when they pretty much bricked almost every single device in the United States. and in Europe when that big CrowdStrike outage happened, and the stock really got pummeled on that. And it's recovered all of that and more, which really shows the resilience of that stock. So again, as we kind of highlight a lot of these stocks and sectors that are leading, it's just good to reiterate, not to really sound like I'm repeating myself, but usually the first out of the gate are your new leaders for the cycle. And there's been a lot of data, I forget the exact percentage-based number, but the number one stock in any given sector during a bull market tends to go up 2 to 3 times more than the number 2 stock, right? So it's really, really important to be in the leader, not number 1 or not number 2 or number 3. Here's 50 Hudson Yards. This is the new headquarters of BlackRock. Really beautiful looking lobby too. Nikhil is here, what's up? And it's so convenient because you're right across the street from the 7 train. So they actually expanded the 7 train so the Hudson Yards could actually work and operate, because nobody would work in any of these office buildings if they had to walk all the way from 34th Street Penn Station. So now you have the 7 train here, which is a brand new state-of-the-art train station. So the last stop in Manhattan on the 7 train is 34th Street Hudson Yards, and the last stop on the 7 train in Queens is Flushing Main Street. So if you ever want to get, if you want to go to see a Mets game or something like that, you could take the 7 train to Mets Willets Point, and then the next stop would be Flushing Main Street, which I was just in Flushing this week. It's New York City's largest Chinatown. It's so nice being at Hudson Yards and the wind isn't destroying my face. What a difference. Now here's another pretty interesting fact as it relates to New York City real estate. This building right here on the corner of 34th Street and Hudson Boulevard, this is Pfizer's new headquarters for New York City. Now, Pfizer's previous headquarters used to be right next to Grand Central Terminal on the left side of the Chrysler Building. Now, in its place, we've always been talking about this, major commercial real estate trend in New York. This is a pretty cool view of the Empire State Building. How a lot of companies are ditching their older Class B and Class C office towers and are opting for newer product, particularly a lot of this stuff here in Hudson Yards. And in the old Pfizer headquarters, it's going to be an apartment conversion, a rental conversion, and it is going to be the largest office to apartment conversion in the city's history, and it is going to dethrone Harry Maclow's One Wall Street for that largest project. So you can see here, let me see if I can get you a good view. This is 66 Hudson Yards. This is the new Pfizer headquarters. I think you also have HSBC in here. Really nice. Hey, Mock, this is Tom. I have to say I really missed these walks during the hiatus. Glad you're back. Thanks so much. I appreciate it. Yeah, I was dealing with, I had this sinus infection that wouldn't go away for like a month, and then I had a family member who was sick, and I was traveling a lot. And our firm, our team, we moved to a different firm. They offered us, a pretty good deal. So we are now over at Corcoran. So all that just rolled up into one. It was pretty busy time. Let's make this right on West 35th Street and head back into Midtown. This building is like a luxury senior living. I think people spend upwards of $35,000 a month for these senior living facilities here, which is kind of crazy. I think we had that conversation on a stream one night about how a major growing market is going to be home health care and assisted living facilities, which, you know, in my previous career, that was kind of my bread and butter. And I was really at the right place at the right time, and quite frankly got very lucky to be on a healthcare sales team selling into the largest home healthcare agencies, assisted living facilities in the country, all while the pandemic was hitting. So it was like a boom for us. But look at this, now leasing. I think this is like 24/7 senior care. I think there's doctors and nurses on hand here. Very, very expensive. This is a pretty cool view looking into Midtown Manhattan. You can see the New York Times building and a little bit of the H&M building too. This is 10th Avenue, but we're going to cross all the way over back to Avenue of the Americas. If you guys are enjoying the stream, feel free to leave a like on the video and subscribe if you're new. This used to be all auto body shops, which is kind of crazy. You can see the front entrance of Pfizer. Lady 64 is visiting New York in September. It's a great month to visit. It's not too hot, but it's also not going to be freezing cold. And then here you have 50 Hudson Yards, the BlackRock headquarters. Tons of new hotels. Yeah, Brian's feels like Brickell, Miami a little bit, mainly because Hudson Yards is so new, right? This is one of the really newest developments in the city. And I always describe the Hudson Yards as like a city within a city. It's very modern, very new, all thanks to Related. You'll start to see the transition back as we walk towards Madison Square Garden and Penn Station. You also have great views of the Empire too. Really nice. Hey, Rick C says, any future plans to visit Sutton Place? Now that the weather is nice, yeah, we'll probably be at Sutton Place next week. We'll have to take a little bit of a walk through. For those of you who don't know, Sutton Place was once the most, I would say, sought after and coveted neighborhood in New York. Because back in the day, a lot of people didn't want to live in Midtown. Midtown was known for working. Nobody, it was kind of like a stigma that, all of the wealthy New Yorkers lived on the Upper East Side of Manhattan. But now, you're seeing a major change in that environment, mainly because demand is changing for what a lot of younger people want. A lot of the clients that I talk to that are under the age of 40, they don't want to live on the Upper East Side and these older townhomes or these older co-ops. They want to live in a lot of these luxury buildings with swimming pools, all these different amenities like gyms and dog spas. That's kind of what the younger crowd want. So you've actually seen significant price declines in places like Sutton Place and a lot of these cooperatives that are a little bit older. So if you're looking to move to New York City and you don't really need, and your priority is not moving into a building with a bunch of luxury amenities like swimming pools and all that, you could probably score a pretty good deal at an older co-op on the Upper East Side or maybe in Sutton Place. I mean, I've seen things trading at like $900 a square foot, $950, $975 a foot. Just for some context, some of the newer development in these luxury buildings could go, depending on the building, you could get like $20,000 a square foot, like on Billionaire's Row. Or, I would say middle range is like $2,500 a foot, $2,200 a square foot for some of these new developments. Hey, middle-aged grind, what's going on? Just, hey, Tom just got off of work. Happy Friday. Happy Friday to you. Pretty strong day in the markets again, and we got the non-farm payroll number. I think we added, 177,000 jobs. So coming in quite strong, which nobody was really expecting that. I'll probably be in here tomorrow. This is the B&H. This is the greatest audio-visual store in the city, potentially the country. Excuse me. This is a pretty cool view because we could see the New Yorker Hotel, and we have an awesome shot of the Empire State Building. And this is looking back by the Moynihan Train Hall. This is a very classic New York view here. Peter says the economy is better than most people think. It's very, very interesting because a lot of the consumer sentiment numbers that are coming out are very, very low, which we kind of talked about. So you kind of have this environment in the market where equities are grinding higher, all while consumers have never been more negative on the economy and on the markets. It's a very interesting dichotomy we have going on, and I honestly don't know what the reason for that is, because data doesn't lie. I'm not alleging that the data is fake. Somebody sent me an email yesterday. It's like, Tom, you're coming off as all of the consumer sentiment data is falsified. No, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is just an interesting juxtaposition, because we have, I thought someone was in trouble. We have equity market grinding higher, and corporate earnings have been churning out very well, right? The lion's share of big tech earnings is now behind us, and we talked about this in depth yesterday. Just think about the numbers that Meta reported. Think about the numbers that Amazon and Microsoft and Apple reported within this environment. Profitability or net income for the first 3 months of the year at Apple, $24 billion, okay? All of the major tech giants in the first 3 months of the year, every single one of them made over, I think, 14 billion bucks. And a lot of the business, right, at Meta is advertising dollars and advertising revenue. And advertising revenue is a very, very big tell for if, a lot of small and medium-sized businesses or SMBs are doing well, right? Which is interesting. So advertising is up. That was actually a very bright spot of Alphabet's earnings report. A little bit off topic, but not really off topic. Hold that thought. This is kind of sad. The Sam Ash music store. I used to go in here a lot. It looks like it's closed permanently. Wow. Talk about the Amazon effect. We are permanently closed. We would like to thank you for your last support, or for your support over the last 100 years. Oh my God. That is crazy. Anybody in the chat ever been in the Sam Ash music store? I used to go in here a lot. Man, that's a bummer. This place, wow. Yeah, Roberts has loved Sam Ash. I mean, I'm not a big musician, but I used to come in here and play around for fun. Wow. I mean, e-commerce is definitely dominant. E-commerce is the future. Says, what are your thoughts on Bezos announcing he's going to sell 25 million Amazon shares? Yeah, I saw that as well. I do take into consideration insider buying and insider selling. However, I do take into consideration more so when it's insider buying as opposed to insider selling. And I'll kind of explain my position on that. And maybe, people have different opinion, and that's fine. But think about the incentives, right, for a moment. I want you to think about all of the different reasons why a corporate executive would buy a share of his own stock or company. And then I want you to think of all the reasons why they would sell stock in their own company. And there's really only one reason why you buy the stock, is because you think the stock is undervalued and it's going to go significantly higher. But there's a million reasons why someone would sell, right? One of which including is that they think their company is a little bit overvalued, that is true. But for a guy like Jeff Bezos, who's kind of come out here and publicly said multiple times that he is going to use the wealth that he's accumulated through Amazon to fund his other ventures like Blue Origin and the like. And I'm not saying that's the reason why he's selling. Very possible the reason why he's selling is he thinks the stock's a little bit overvalued. Maybe they have too much tariff exposure, but I put a little bit less weighting on insider selling as opposed to insider buying. Because there's a million reasons from here to Tuesday why someone would sell their shares as opposed to buying. There's really only one reason, right? And you're only going to buy your stock unless you think it's undervalued and you want to make some money. But I will say this, Amazon has been a laggard, right? A lot of these Mag 7 stocks, and this goes back to a theme that we were talking about at the beginning of the live stream, you don't really want to be bottom fishing and looking to buy stocks coming out of a bear market who are still under their 200-day moving average and their 50-day moving average, right? A lot of these stocks that are down and trading below their major moving averages are probably going to be laggards. The stocks that are already up and out and hitting new highs are probably going to be the new leaders for the cycle. I mean, does anybody else have an opinion on that or a different take? I'd love to know what you guys think about that, but that's, my opinion on insider buying and selling. going on here. Saris is always a bad sign. Hey, Reggie44, what's going on? Michelle K, good to see you as always. JK, I know, you can just walk in and play any instrument. That's what I used to do. I used to play the piano there a little bit. Huh. Harry says Bezos already also has a very expensive girlfriend. Huh. $4 billion expensive? I don't know about that. Maybe. Crazy, right? But, you know, from an investor standpoint, and I think we also had this debate yesterday, if we think about the companies who have the most impact to this whole tariff debacle, it's probably going to be companies that are hawking cheap Chinese nonsense. And I'm not saying that's Amazon's whole business, right? But it's a big part of it, right? Obviously, AWS is the driver, you know, Amazon AWS, which had slight deceleration, but the cloud business at AWS still grew. Didn't grow as fast as Microsoft Azure, though. Azure really knocked it out of the park. But obviously, companies like, you know, Amazon and Apple are going to feel a little bit more pressure from these tariff environment. That said, I want to spend a little time talking about Apple and Tim Cook and some of the executive decisions that they've made over there. Green 007 says Amazon is behind the curve due to external factors and will recover in time. It's definitely possible. Top Cat's downside of Netflix, etc., is they can pull content, whereas physical media, you always have it. Jose says the tariffs are affecting Temu and Shein as well. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the thing, right? Like those sites, and I'm familiar with those sites. I kind of have I try to keep like my personal politics out of it, but I don't think it's the end of the world to have like Temu's business suffer from the tariffs, right? This is all like very, 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 very cheap, you know, Chinese products that are manufactured in really, really tough conditions, which has been competing with Amazon. So I think my whole point in relation to this is you kind of, we'll wait until we get through the maze of scaffolding here. Because it's kind of like, you know, you have to kind of tread carefully with this, right? Because look, not to get political, but the administration campaigned on, you know, bringing manufacturing jobs back to the United States. I've already said my piece on what I think about it. None of these manufacturing jobs are going to come back in terms of, you know, the little trinkets and the plastic nonsense you buy from China. It's just not, it's not going to come back, okay? The US economy has moved on from that. And, you know, whether you like it or not, if we just want to talk raw here, Americans like cheap products. And a byproduct of that is exporting all of that manufacturing overseas, where, you know, these people get paid maybe like $5 a day, okay? And I'm just like shooting it straight. So when people like are freaking out about, oh my God, my Temu products are going to be, you know, I'm going to have to pay 100% more. This is outrageous. You know, you're essentially saying that you know, all that stuff is being made in slave labor conditions. It's just what it is, okay? So that's kind of why I say none of those jobs are ever going to come back to the US. It's just not feasible to open a factory and make all that stuff in the United States, because American workers command a premium. They're not going to do it for $5 a day. okay? I mean, some of the working conditions in these factories in China, it's just like glorified slave labor. So, I don't know, that's kind of my piece on it. None of those manufacturing jobs are gonna come back. It's not happening. What will come back, okay, for further context, is very advanced manufacturing. There's a difference. Advanced manufacturing will come back, but making little trinkets and things is not going to come back. It's just the reality of the situation. I think that guy blew this red light. You know, you'll have very, very advanced semiconductor manufacturing, much of which will be, you know, automated, and it has to do with, you know, extensive high-skill labor in terms of engineering. That will come back. That is starting to come back. But, you know, all these little things that we buy off of Amazon and these e-commerce platforms, none of that stuff is ever going to be made here ever. It's just not going to happen. If you guys are enjoying the stream, feel free to leave a like on the video and subscribe if you're new. Now, one of the things I wanted to say about Apple, right, because I was reading like a few articles. I mean, I support the police, but one of the things I don't like about what cops do is when it's a red light, they just turn on their lights and blast it just so they don't have to sit at the red light. It's very dangerous. I've seen like a lot of cyclists almost get knocked off by these cops doing that. But I was reading a lot of articles, and there was one particular article in the Wall Street Journal today that was lambasting and kind of politicizing Tim Cook and Apple's decisions on moving manufacturing, and kind of alleged that they're only moving manufacturing to India to circumvent these tariffs, right? So they're saying, oh my gosh, this trade war and the tariff war with China is, you know, forcing, you know, Apple to shift their manufacturing capacity to India, and this is going to cost a lot of money and blah, blah, blah. But they were already doing that like 2 years ago, right? And we kind of spoke about why. But again, the average Joe is not really paying attention to this, but companies by and large have been diversifying away from their manufacturing hubs being in China, mainly due to the pandemic, right? Supply chains took 3 years to recover. Okay, I don't know if anybody here was affected by that, but I was working in tech at the time, and I couldn't get my hands on chips if I tried. Like, I had customers placing orders, they were offering me over ask, my margins were blowing out, I was making a ton of money, and I just couldn't get product because we didn't have, there was just none to be had. The supply chains were destroyed. You know, we had a massive semiconductor shortage. So a lot of these companies realized that and said, okay, in the event that, God forbid, this happens again, we can't be reliant on China. So you saw a lot of that manufacturing capacity be invested into places like Vietnam. You saw a lot of this manufacturing capacity be invested into India. India, and this is why I've been, you know, so bullish on the Indian economy, is because they have a very, very young population, and their middle class is going to go through a big bull market with all this manufacturing capacity there. So I think the big play here for Apple is going to be pretty much almost 100% of their iPhone manufacturing is going to go to India, and that's not going to go here. It's not. Which, by the way, I do disagree with the notion that we should, you know, take a very, very, very hard stance against China. We should take a hard stance against them, but we shouldn't like alienate them and, you know, lambaste them to death, because China is one of those countries that you kind of want to, I don't want to use the word appease, but you kind of want to keep them a little bit of your friend, right? The world is a very safe and hospitable place when the United States and China get along, or at least it's like when you're younger and you fight with your brother or your siblings, but you still love them, but it's like, you bust each other's balls. That's kind of the healthy relationship we need to have. If we totally have this like divisive relationship with them, that's going to be very dangerous for not only the global economy, but in terms of like a hot war starting, which I don't think that'll happen. But it's very important not to isolate and alienate like that, in my view. This is the Macy's at Herald Square, which is decorated really nice for the Macy's Flower Show. Look at that. Hey, Nicholas is here, New Hampshire Real Estate, says I don't think it would ever get too serious between the United States and China. I don't think it will either. I think I agree with you. I think I agree. TK Porsche says, have you noticed the large number of tech CEOs of Indian heritage? Another reflection of the excellent STEM and business education in India. Yeah, I have noticed that. That's a good point. Andrew O'Donovan says, what is the last big innovation from Apple? They grew 8% this quarter, no bueno. Well, a lot of people have been very critical of Tim Cook, saying that there's really been no major new product launch. I guess you could say the Apple Vision Pro, but I don't know, the Apple Vision Pro was kind of a flop, and I thought Apple Vision Pro was going to be a big deal, but it has been a little bit of a flop. Another thing that's a little concerning about Apple, which I'm not super concerned about it, but I'm a little concerned about it, is the share of revenue that they get from royalties from Google or Alphabet, which I think is now in litigation. Anybody in the audience know like a little bit more about that? Essentially, Alphabet or Google pays Apple serious royalties to have Safari be the default web browser on the iPhone. And I think there's like an antitrust case involving that, and if they win that, I think that revenue goes to zero, doesn't it? Anyway, I mean, Apple still has plus 40% margins, and their software business is growing. Reggie44 says AI huge disappointment for Apple. Yeah, you're right on that one too. What did Tim Cook say on the call the other day? He said that we're just not yet comfortable with releasing our new AI. We don't think it's market ready yet, or something he said. I mean, here's the thing about AI, and again, I'm not an engineer, but these companies like OpenAI, right, Sam Altman's company, and even Grok, I'm not sure if anybody uses Grok here, but it has gotten so good, like so unbelievable good. And AI is like a runaway freight train, right? Once it gets good, it gets better. And once it gets better, it gets extraordinary. And then it's like terminal velocity. So if you fall behind in AI, it's kind of like, you're shit out of luck. Elliott Wave Review, what's going on, says, hey Tom, have you acquired any gold since the last all-time high? I've actually been selling my gold position down over the past week and rotating the lion's share of that in Bitcoin. So if you're following us on the X platform, at Walks Wall Street, before the 2 follow-through days we had, in my actively managed account, I was 30% GLD and Bitcoin and 70% cash. Now I'm almost no gold. That 30% weighting is all Bitcoin, and I'm almost 100% invested in equities. Which, by the way, I was going to hedge a very, very large portion of my book today, but I didn't hedge anything. So I'm going into next week like max risk, which I guess is okay, but because a lot of the names that that I have are working, and I have a pretty good cushion. But as we talked about, the S&P is up 9 days in a row. So I mean, just statistically speaking, we're going to have a pullback. We're at least going to have 1 or 2 red days tomorrow, and one of the red days could be a 2% down day, which means my book is probably going to be down maybe 10%, right? But gold has been an unbelievable performer. I mean, 35. My target when gold was breaking out of that cup with handle base at 1900, I said your first target is 3,000 gold. I wrote in the newsletter. We blew through that. We're at 3,500. I don't think the move for gold is over, by the way. In these bull markets, which we have a bull market in precious metals, you have pullbacks, you have corrections, and usually those pullbacks should be bought, assuming you're still trading over the 50 and the 200 day. The reason why I rotated most of my position into Bitcoin, and this is the paper, right? I'm talking about IBIT, like the nonsense. That doesn't have anything to do with my actual Bitcoin holdings, which is quite literally on paper wallets. I don't know if anybody's old enough to remember that. Anyway, I think it's going to be a faster horse in the race. Solo 401, good to see you. God bless. Hope you're well. But yeah, I mean, I think that's something we should look for next week, because, again, the leaders that we talked about, like the Netflixes, all the stocks that are out, right, up and out in the new all-time highs, they're extended over their moving averages by a lot, right? And the market, the indices are up 9 days in a row. So we're probably going to get some sort of, backing and filling next week. We'll see. Professor Darío. Hola, ¿cómo estás? Hope you're doing well. I should be back in Little Buenos Aires the last week of May. I'm hoping to spend Memorial Day weekend in Little Buenos Aires. So I'm looking forward to that. I'll have to send you some photos from Cachito Coffee and Bakery. Not as many people as I would have thought in line to go to the top of the empire tonight. I mean, it's a perfect day for it. Not too many people doing it. TD is here. Welcome, TD. Unij 23, Peter, Reggie 44. Matthew, what's going on, Matthew? I'm doing well. Hopefully you're doing well. NBA Alliance is Tom. From these crowds in New York City tonight, this does not look like an economic downturn. I know, right? Which obviously it's anecdotal in nature, which I kind of said yesterday, but I'm not seeing any slowdown in New York. There was this, somebody tagged me in this video on the X platform, and it was this guy bitching and complaining about, oh my God, I'm in New York City, and look around, there's nobody around, and that's because, Trump is threatening to deport everybody, and this is what this country has come to. There's nobody around. And for number one, the kid's like a fucking transplant from Ohio who knows nothing about the city. And number two, it's like, what are you talking about? Like, I'm in the city working every day, and this place is rocking. I've never seen more people here, right? This is like a 100% recovery from the pandemic. Like, the place is mobbed. Hudson Yards, all the restaurants are filled. If you go down to Soho or the West Village, like if we walk down to the West Village today, I mean, Maron, like the West Village is on fire. It's packed. And it was the same thing when I was down in Miami last week, checking on my property down there. It was crazy, the amount of people in Miami. So I don't know, obviously it's anecdotal data, but there's a lot of people out and about visiting New York, traveling. I mean, I know I asked this question yesterday, but what about you guys? I mean, feel free to post it in the chat. Let us know what state or city you're from. And let me know if it's busy. Are your local neighborhoods and communities busy? Are your restaurants busy? I mean, what are you guys seeing in your neck of the woods? Hey, Mark Summers says, hey Tom, I've been selling roughly 5% of my portfolio each day over the past days, keeping it available for the next potential buy. Very cool. Hope you're doing well. We're gonna walk through, what's it called here? Koreatown, 32nd Street, Korea Way, as we walk down 5th Avenue. Alfred's is Phoenix is still busy. Daytona Gals is Daytona Beach, Florida is very busy here. I think the only city where we've had respondents in the chat say it's slow is LA. I'm not sure if we have any more viewers from LA, but there was 2 people from Los Angeles yesterday that said it was very, very dead in LA. Oh, Shoe Lady, there we go. Says, Tom, I'm from Los Angeles, California, and we're doing well there. Well, there we go. Manny1515 says, I'm in Miami. In my opinion, I wish, oops, let me pull over to the side and read your comment here. Wish people would go back to their states. Too many people here. Well, it's good for the local economy. And a lot of these people moving down to Miami-Dade specifically, yes, it's bad that, they bid up the prices of homes, but I mean, think about the tax revenue that, Miami-Dade and, other local municipalities are bringing in. Like massive, massive, massive amounts of tax revenue, which hopefully will make a lot of the public schools better in Miami-Dade, which, has knock-on effects down the line, right? If you kind of think about it, like, I complain a lot about Long Island, New York, right, where I'm from, mainly because it's so expensive and the taxes are so high in terms of the property tax. But to be fair, we do have some of the best public schools in the nation on Long Island, right? So maybe the public schools will continue to get better down south. Just a thought. Melissa 2087 says, I saw a Broadway show recently. Oops. I think it was sold out or very close to. I was very surprised. NBA Elias says, Tom, are your flights to Florida always full? They're always full, and they're always like cartoonishly expensive. So I was gonna come back, and I mean, obviously Easter weekend is gonna be, crazy expensive for flights, so this probably is not a good data point. But I was gonna fly back the day after Easter, and the cheapest flight to LaGuardia from Fort Lauderdale or Miami was $1,200. So I'm like, there's no way I'm doing that. And instead I flew back 2 days later for $250. So, which is still expensive. For context, 2-3 years ago, I used to spend $75 on a flight from JFK to Miami. And that was with American Airlines. Hold on, I want to take you guys across the street. This is one of my favorite views of all time in the city. Look at how beautiful the Empire State Building looks from here. IPDS is from Orlando to LaGuardia. It's usually very cheap, maybe worth the drive if you have to. Yeah, I thought about it, but it's just too much. It's too much. I priced it out taking the Bright Line too, and it's just too much of a hassle. And I only spend maybe like 5 to 7 days down there, so I just got to be in and out. But you're right, the flights definitely are cheaper to Orlando. That is for sure. Top Cats' tourism in Dublin, Ireland is currently down 30% due to the current issues there. Let's see who else we have. Well, one of the problems with Ireland that is actually going to, it may really impact their economy, is the tax structure in Ireland really, in a positive way, really attracted a lot of these pharmaceutical companies to kind of circumvent paying taxes in the United States. And I think the Trump administration is going to put a kibosh to that. Depending on how strong the lobbyists are in the pharmaceutical industry. But if you've noticed, and I have a little bit of color into this because my brother's a big pharma guy. He got his career started off in pharmaceuticals when he graduated Cornell, and he would constantly be on business trips in Ireland. And it's mainly because Ireland's a big tax haven, mainly because of the pharmaceutical companies. So that could be a problem if that kind of gets shaken up. I wonder what that's going to do for a lot of the corporate earnings too. It'd be interesting to see where the biotech sector, pharma sector is trading. I don't even really look at many of those names, to be honest. I kind of want to take one pass through Koreatown. Very busy tonight. I would love to visit Ireland, though. My great-grandparents came to New York through Ellis Island from Ireland. Oscar D says, "Hey Tom, what's the status of the new construction going up near the Empire State Building?" I think the renderings look pretty good. If you're referring to this building right here with the crane on top of it, if you look at some of the renderings online, it's insane. The problem is it really blocks a lot of the views of the Empire. So if you're standing near the Flatiron building or something, it's kind of unfortunate. It kind of destroys all the views. Daniel G says, "Hey Tom, lovely Friday night." Good to see you, Daniel, from Argentina. Buenos Aires. Daniel, you're going to have to get to Miami to see Messi before he leaves Inter Miami. You know, from a business standpoint, a lot of people kind of underestimate David Beckham. But if you look back on this business transaction that he's done, going all the way back to 2008, when he signed the contract with the Major League Soccer team, Los Angeles Galaxy, that was probably one of the greatest business moves ever in sports history. I think he's probably going to be worth, you may see him be worth like $9 billion when all is said and done, because he owns Inter Miami. I think in his contract, they paid him a bunch of money, but the most lucrative thing about the deal is that after his retirement, or upon him retiring from Major League Soccer, in his contract, he would have a pick to really open up a new soccer team in the United States anywhere he wanted. and he chose Miami. And my God, I mean, what a boomtown Miami has been over the last 5 years. And I think it'll have some staying power. And then he was able to recruit all of these superstars like Leo Messi. I don't know if there's any soccer fans in the audience, but Messi is like one of the most famous, not only soccer players ever, but really athletes anywhere in the world. He's like up there with Cristiano Ronaldo in terms of just like star power. I actually ate here tonight at this Food Gallery 32. This is a pretty good spot, the Pelicana Chicken up there. Lori Brody, welcome to New York City's Koreatown. This restaurant's pretty good, Wartyjip. If you come here 30 minutes before closing time, hey, good to see you. Hey, what's up, man? Alex, what's up? If you come here 30 minutes before closing time, they give 50% off meals, which is pretty cool. That was our good friend Alex there.
That's different for her, right?
Yeah, Dock 7, that's a big problem in K-Town. There's just a lot of garbage. There's nowhere to put it.
Yeah, and like there are
The only problem is BYOB. You gotta go to H Bar and then come back.
Yesterday, yesterday for Japan, I guess today for us, the Nikkei index closed up again, another 1.5%. That Japanese stocks has really been on like a hockey stick trajectory up, which kind of leads me to believe Japan is probably going to get the most favorable deal in terms of a trade deal with the United States. Udon Lab here. Mark Summers is, and they should. I agree. I mean, honestly, my prediction for the outcome of all this is you're not really going to see a lot of the manufacturing return to the U.S. You're going to see very advanced manufacturing return to the U.S., and everything else is going to go to India, Japan, and Vietnam. So China is going to take a big beating, I think. And you're going to see Vietnam have extreme strength. You're going to see Japan have extreme strength. And then you're going to see India do very well. This is now Herald Square.
yeah.
Reggie 44 says Japan holds our debt. Pretty much everybody does. Anthony, what's going on? Happy Friday to you. I wonder if there's a Knicks game going on tonight, or was that last night, I think? The Knicks were playing. Check the logic, what's going on? TK Porsches has sacrificed 2 or 3 parking spaces per street for the trash. I don't know what the solution is, but I think the problem is we don't have any alleyways here. So it's like, where are you going to put it? K-Town is all restaurants, right? And you're going to have garbage from restaurants. There's just nowhere. There's no feasible place to put it. Now, a little kind of anecdotal data about housing, because I know we have a lot of real estate folks in here. As you know, the housing sales market has really been the worst in terms of transaction volume since the 90s, since like the mid to late 90s. But the rental market's been extremely strong. And my place down south is totally booked out through the summer. And most of the people are booked for internships down in Miami, saying, hey, you know, I'm coming down for a summer internship, I need a place to stay. It's been I've gotten probably maybe 9 inquiries across 3 units. So I'm already booked up until September. The sales market, it's going to be very, very difficult to move product or, you know, houses, because it's so unaffordable for people with the interest rate environment. You haven't really had home prices come down all that much, while you've had the, you know, opposite correlation in interest rates, when it's usually the opposite, right? Generally speaking, not all the time. There's an inverse correlation between interest rates and valuations. So when you have, you know, an uptick in interest rates, you usually have a little bit of softening in price. We're seeing a little bit of softening in price, but not in like the big metro markets, at least not what I'm seeing, right? In and around New York City, not really. Particularly the outer boroughs and the suburbs around New York City, like Nassau County, Suffolk County. You could even, you know, throw in upstate New York, like Ossining, New Rochelle, you know, places in Connecticut, Stamford, Connecticut, and the like. If anything, you're still seeing kind of bidding wars there. And probably around many metro areas across the country, I think you're probably going to see a lot of softening in some of the flyover states. I was reading through the most recent earnings deck for Taylor Morrison Homes, and they're offering throughout the spring selling season record incentivizations. I think in some markets upwards of 19% in total in terms of discounts, whether that's rate buy downs, whether that is some sort of you know, discount off a list price, or to take it a step further, maybe like a discount off of like a new renovation or something, or like a rip and replace for one of the new homes to put a new kitchen in there or something. So I would say you can probably find a pretty good deal in new development as opposed to resale, because new development inventory is creeping up significantly. It is. And developers are always willing to deal. If you have a real buyer in new development, and if you know the developer, they'll do a deal, right? Because a lot of them just want to move the product and be on to the next thing, or raise capital, wait out the market. And if you're in the business of home building, you know, search for lots of land to buy. So if you're thinking of looking in Manhattan, I would say you're probably going to get the most price flexibility in new development, right? And one of the things that you could do is research a lot of the new builds, for example, and you can use a tool like Property Shark or something like that to see the total percentage sold. And if you're looking at a new development and it's, let's say, you know, 90% sold, and then you come in with a extremely below asking offer, well, the developer's probably going to tell you to pound sand, right? Because they're already 90% sold. But if the thing has been sitting a long time, if they're like 50% sold and they launched sales like maybe 3 or 4 years ago, you can probably become very aggressive with them and get yourself a very good deal. So that's one of the things that I'd recommend is, if you're looking at new development, research the developer, see what other projects they've done, and look at the percentage sold, the net percentage sold. And if developer XYZ is kind of having a hard time moving some product, well, and you want to get a deal, well, maybe you can get a pretty good deal. I think this Hyatt house is relatively new. This is on the corner of West 28th Street and 6th Avenue. Oh, Barnju, Nomad. This is a K barbecue spot. There's also a Barnju in 14th Street Herald Square, 14th Street Union Square. Excuse me. Mark Summers says our rental market is still fairly strong. However, the increased supply has outpaced demand in some areas, putting downward pressure on rent prices, especially in Phoenix, Arizona, suburban markets, West Valley. Very good piece of intel there. Yeah, there seems to be an interesting correlation between cities and states that are, let's just say, more developer friendly. You know, if you allow these developers to build product, you know, prices will start to come down and prices will start to ease a little bit. I think the Austin, Texas market is softening a little bit as well. Oscar says domestic airfares are getting cheaper. Hopefully. But like I said, every time I go to Miami now, it's like $250 one way. Prazik says my parents' house in Florida will not sell. Well, Florida is a very big state. What part of Florida are they in? Are they in Miami-Dade? Are they in Broward? Which kind of part? Pretty much any house that doesn't need a ton of work in Miami-Dade County that's under $450,000 is going to sell immediately, which is very rare to find. Because a lot of the houses that are listed at like 400, 450, you're going to need to gut the entire thing. And some of them don't even have any central air conditioning. Some of them still have window AC units. Ah, yeah, Pensacola, Florida. So Pensacola is in the Panhandle, right? Yeah, that is such a very, very different market. Rick says you could buy a beautiful home in Hialeah. Hialeah is deep. Hialeah is deep. We're now on West 25th Street. We'll cut over at 23rd Street. We'll cut over to the left and we'll go up Broadway. and a V407. Good to see you. Happy Friday. Hopefully you have some good plans for the weekend. TK Porsche says, I've heard good things about Destin, Florida as an attractive, affordable beach community. I'll have to check it out. A community that has found recent allure mainly due to SpaceX, or excuse me, Space Force, I believe. Maybe SpaceX and Space Force, is Satellite Beach. Anybody in the audience familiar with Satellite Beach, Florida? There's a lot, and I mean a lot of new developments going up in Satellite Beach, Florida, and apparently they're selling pretty well. This is the PATH train, it'll take you to New Jersey. Little road rage. Ted says, I've lived there. What are your thoughts about Satellite Beach? John says, I'm a realtor in Pensacola, Florida. Prices are definitely dropping. So if there's houses and selling, it's probably overpriced. Yeah, I mean, one of the things we're seeing in New York, and this, I would say this is predominantly in the resale market, right? And I won't speak for Pensacola, Florida, I'll speak for New York City. A lot of our clients, they already own these properties outright. Right, so it'll be maybe like a $4 to $5 million place in Tribeca. You know, they own it outright, and their common charges and their taxes are like 10 grand a month, right? Which they can easily pay that on their own. So we'll list the property, and you know, we tell them up front, we're like, look, we really don't want to list it here. We actually don't even want to take the listing if you're going to have us listed here. We've actually been turning a lot of listings away because we don't want to just take listings for the sake of listings. And it'll sit on the market, it'll never sell, and you'll get some lowball offers, and you'll get some pretty good offers. And a lot of people are like, no, we just want this price, and we're not that motivated. If we can't get this price, we'll just wait it out. And then we just turn around and we rent it for like, you know, 15, 20 grand, depending on the property, and it rents in 2 weeks, 2-3 weeks. And that's just because at a lot of the prices that these sellers want is just in very, very stark disconnect with what buyers are willing to pay. The problem is, again, talking specifically about New York, not all, okay, I want to be clear, not all, but a lot of people, they don't really have that motivation, like that really, really grieving motivation to sell. You know, they don't have a lot of debt on the property, if at all. They're like, yeah, we want to sell it. Maybe we'll buy something in, you know, LA, or maybe we'll buy something in upstate New York. Maybe we'll get something in Palm Beach, but we really don't need to sell it. Maybe we'll just take out a second mortgage on it or something like that, rip the equity out, and they don't want to budge on the price. And then they're like, okay, we'll rent it. We find a renter, and that's the show. So the rental market is strong here in New York, because if you're doing the cost benefit analysis to say, my budget is 15 grand a month or $20,000 a month for my mortgage. You can rent something and get such a much nicer and bigger place for 20 grand a month, as opposed to buying something, let's say you put 20% down, with your mortgage, taxes, and, the interest, you're gonna get like half the size of the apartment and in a subprime area. So many people, especially in New York, are just choosing to rent because you get more bang for your buck in this market renting something. Which I guess is good for landlords. Here's the Flatiron building. This is going to be converted into condominiums. It's probably going to be a very awkward floor plan, right? Mr. 007 says, used to have a family condo in Satellite Beach. Great place and not far away to drive to Orlando, Disney. Yeah, I think the Space Force base is close to Satellite Beach, right? Let's take a look at the Flatiron. You almost can't even see it. There's just too much scaffolding all over it. Oh, Paul's Space Force is in Cape Canaveral. I don't know. I mean, the Flatiron building is beautiful, obviously, right? But I think people will just buy it just to say they have a condo in the Flatiron building. But for livability, I mean, that thing is so narrow. The floor plans are probably going to be extremely awkward. And the building that I'm going to show you now has totally eroded extreme premium from the condos in the Flatiron building. And I'll show you why. I mean, look at that. So this is going to be your view if you have a place in the Flatiron. You used to have a beautiful view of the Empire State Building, but now it's totally covered. Crazy. Can't even see the Empire State Building anymore. This used to be the best view in all of New York, and now you can't even see the Empire. I mean, I guess it's good for the other building because it's going to have full floor flow-through apartments. We'll cross back up. Maybe we have just enough time to go through Madison Square Park. Hey, Felipe, good to see you. I'm not too sure what the average hotel room in New York is going for now. If I had to guess, $500. But I don't like to go off of the average, especially in New York City, because it's so skewed by the five-star hotels. Because you can get a hotel room in Manhattan on the very, very low end, maybe like $200, right? But on the very, very high end, you could spend $30,000. So it's like so exacerbated in New York City. So the averages really don't even matter. Okay, let's go ahead and take a quick stroll through Madison Square Park. And it seems like a lot of people are out and about, enjoying the weather here. Bob Smith says, what percentage of clients ask the realtor for financing at 4 to 5% level, or are they mainly privately financed? What do you mean? Are you talking about seller financing? Do they ask for seller financing? I know if you buy a house from a home builder, I know that some of the home builders are offering like those incentives where you can get those kind of rates, but I mean, I've had some very crazy offers, and I will say this. This is maybe unrelated, but there's a lot of finance guys and girls in New York, as you know, and they submit the most complicated offers, right? Now, to them, it may not seem complicated because they're in finance, but I'll give you a piece of advice. As I sit down to tie my shoe, sellers don't care about how like fancy or smart you are to structure a deal. They don't give a shit. If it's like, oh, well, we're going to do seller financing, and then we're going to do this month payback, and then if we don't pay back you in this allotment of time, you know, you have a clause where we're going to pay you a, you know, in a lump sum and a higher interest rate. Nobody gives a shit if you can do backflips and tricks and you're the smartest guy in the world in finance. They care about selling the property, and a lot of these people don't understand that for some reason, and they just lose the property, right? And they're like, but you didn't explain it to them properly. This is like the easiest thing to do. I'm like, dude, there's a lot of rich people in New York, and they're just gonna wait until somebody comes by and offers them cash, and they'll do the deal in cash. You know, they don't need to do your wonky structure, you know, and have you do backflips in front of the camera. Nobody cares. And it's all these finance guys and girls that make a lot of money, and they try to structure these obscure seller financing deals. Nobody wants to do seller financing on a Tribeca, you know, listing for $6 million. Nobody gives a shit. They're going to wait for the person that's going to write a check. It's just the truth. Or they're just going to wait for a person that gets conventional financing. They're not going to go with your wonky deal. It's like, I've been having to deal with that a lot, and it's like, dude, even from the other side, like if we're representing the seller and we get these like deals that the broker is like, oh, we're gonna get on a call and review. It's like, okay, and then they just like try to do backflips and say how smart they are on the call. It's like, dude, the seller's not gonna do that. People are busy in this environment. That may work in a commercial setting, right? But it's not gonna work in a residential setting with these properties, right? It may work in some cases, but most cases they're looking for a clean deal. Oh, we got to go out the other way. I think this is closed. Most sellers, they want a clean deal. They want to close quick. They don't want the hassle of dealing with you in perpetuity, right? Especially at that price point. They want a clean deal. So the cleaner you can make the deal, the stronger your offer, you're better. It's strange, it's like maybe 10 degrees cooler inside the park. It's really nice in here too. Yeah, oil. Just struck a nerve. Yeah, it's like I was dealing with this deal, and it's like this broker's like, the only reason why your seller didn't accept the offer is because you didn't explain it right. It's like, no, bro. Like, you're doing a disservice to your buyer by allowing them to put this crazy, bizarro deal together. Like, is it really that wild that my seller accepted a full ask cash offer as opposed to your 5% down seller financing, Tony Hawk kickflip deal. It's like, come on. Oh, I think we have to go out where we came in. This was the old Credit Suisse here. And this building's really beautiful, by the way. Really stunning building. Rick says jump it.
Okay,
I'm a little bit too old and decrepit now. Wow, Mitch says the suite is available at the Four Seasons next weekend for $35,000. That's just like insane. I don't even know that I would pay that if I had money like that. I mean, would you guys, let's say if you had, unlimited money, I don't think I would spend $35,000 for a hotel room. That just seems wasteful. Wow, look at those apartments up there. Amazing views overlooking the park. Pretty soon we're gonna have to go on the Staten Island ferry. I think the last time we did a stream on the Staten Island ferry was probably well over a year ago now, right? Lori says, do I ever sleep at the office? I do not. I think back in the day, like on a very rare occasion I would, because I didn't want to take the train or it was too late. Because if I took the train home, I would literally get home, take a shower, and then have to get the next train back into the city. That was like when I was very young. Most times I'll just stay in a hotel or something like that. Oh, it looks like they're locking up the park here too. And then I live here, so I don't have to sleep in the office. We also haven't been to Washington Square Park in probably over a year too. This is over by Italy. I was just in here last weekend and they did an entire gut renovation on the inside, and they did a really good job. Mr. 007 for sure, yeah, let's do it. I like how they expanded this bike lane here. Shane 71 says, what's going on with the Apple store on 5th Avenue? I'm not too sure. I was just in there the other day. It just looks like there's a bunch of scaffolding all around the outside of the General Motors building. I don't know if that relates to the Apple store or not. Maybe it's just mandatory facade work. I'm not too sure. Why? What have you heard about it? Lee Oswald says, hey Tom, how often do you eat out with all the choices in New York? Honestly, I eat out like almost every day, and I know I shouldn't, but it's just so difficult not to. That's just it's a positive and a negative of being in New York City. This is the new dining room, if you could see. It's like really nice. You could sit down. It's more of a discipline thing, if anything. Could I cook at my apartment? Absolutely. But, I mean, I'm not going to make any excuses. It's definitely just being lazy. And there's just so much good food here, on top of the fact that it's been so miserable in terms of the weather. We pretty much didn't have a spring. So now that the weather's nice, I kind of want to be outside. French Bulldog. Matthew said, what's your favorite spot? Or where are you going to eat tonight or before? Well, tonight after the stream, I'm going to this, it's like a bar, not to drink, but it's like they have food pretty much all night. It's in K-Town. I forget the name of it, but it's very cool. But my favorite spot right now is in Brooklyn, and it's called Tong, T-O-N-G. It's a Michelin star Thai food restaurant that my friend owns. So if you're visiting New York City this summer, check it out. It's very, very good. And if you do choose to go there, let me know. Shoot me an email, and I'll make sure they take care of you when you go there. A really good friend of mine owns it. And the owner used to own a Thai food restaurant on the Upper West Side called Sen, S-E-N-N, which is still very good. I go there all the time, but she doesn't own it anymore. She sold it. This place, I think, has really good steak. I've eaten here on the inside before, never on the outside. Holy crap. This is Anita Gelato. Look at how busy this is. So this is Flatiron Nomad. And I'm so glad they closed this down to vehicle traffic. So it's only pedestrians, and it really gives off a European vibe. So everyone's just kind of hanging out, sitting outside. I mean, the line for this gelato place wraps around the block. 26th Street and Broadway. Same thing for this bar too. So this bar is 230 5th Avenue. But I think it's a little overrated, to be honest, but I mean, look at the crowd. I mean, again, anecdotally, it seems like people are out spending money, right? Consumer sentiment is at all-time lows, according to the data, but consumers seem to be pretty confident tonight. I mean, look at how far back the line goes. It's definitely just a fun vibe here overall. Oh, this Skinny Louie place is in Wynwood, Miami. Is anybody familiar with this spot, Skinny Louie? I've been here once, but it's in Wynwood. Now, if anybody's visiting Miami, my favorite spot of all time is the Barcelona Wine Bar in Wynwood. That's really the coolest place and the most enjoyable place. Hey, good to see you. And it's very, how should I say? Very lively environment. Reggie 44 says, what camera am I using? I'm just using the camera on my iPhone. I believe now I have an iPhone 15, I think. Yeah, I think I have the 15. This is the Smith. There's also a Smith location right outside of Lincoln Center, where we were by yesterday. We also have the new Ritz-Carlton Nomad at the next block. Dale says, it looks like you upgraded your phone. The picture is sharper. I'm just experimenting with the frame rate. So we're actually at a lower frame rate than what we usually shoot. I'm shooting at 30 frames. Usually in lower light conditions, the lower the frame rate, generally speaking, is better, because when you move the camera around, it creates a lot of motion blur. But the city is usually very well lit, so I try to up the frame rate. But right now we're shooting at 30 frames. Like, for example, let's say if I was just shooting a standalone video here, right? Obviously we're only streaming in 1080p, but I would film in 4K, 60 frames a second. But if I'm filming at night, 4K 60 frames would look terrible, in my opinion. So if you're filming at night, you could film in 4K, but you probably should reduce the frame rate in half. Maybe 30 or 24 frames a second if it's very dark. Or else it's just going to be motion blur and the viewer's going to get really sick. Wow, look at this ice cream place. You can kind of just play around with the camera settings. It's kind of like a hobby of mine, I guess. Now, if it's a really sunny day, if there's like not a cloud in the sky and it's full blast sun, you really want to be 4K 60 frames. And that picture's gonna look really nice. So not all 4K videos are created the same. This is 29th Street now. Anyway, if you guys enjoyed the live stream so far tonight, feel free to leave a like on the video and click the subscribe button if you're new. We will be live every single night starting at 8:45. Monday through Friday, it's really more markets focused. Saturday, kind of just gonna hang out. And then Sunday, we will do the markets outlook stream. What's up, Sam M? Laced mushroom. This is the Virgin Hotel. I always see the Virgin cruise lines when I'm at South Point Park in Miami. It's the most incredible thing, honestly. If anybody's traveling to Miami, make sure you check out South Point Park right at sunset. All right, I think we will end the stream here, my friends. But before we go, I want to wish you all a wonderful weekend, safe weekend. Weather permitting, hopefully you can get out and enjoy the weather. And I'll meet you guys back here at 8:45 p.m. tomorrow. Feel free to leave a like and subscribe, and we will see you all tomorrow. Have a good weekend. Professor Dario, thank you very much. Laced Mushroom, Dale, all of our moderators, Richard Scott, SoCal Lawrence, Mark Summers, appreciate it, Scott Solomon, enjoy your weekend, DC322, Madison 32, Connie Ruiz, Joseph Hardaway, NBA Elias, Robert, Brian Forrest, Mr. 007, Blue Sky, Tony, thank you very much. Lemonade, Susanna Q4, Teresa Diaz, Andrew O'Donovan, Sam M, and Peter. Take care, everybody. Be safe and have a great weekend.